Silverlight Amusement Park was once a dreamland, a place of lights, laughter, and music. But after the lightning strike that burned through the main circuit 25 years ago, it had been left to rot. On Halloween night, however, its lights flickered on again, no power, no staff, just a ghostly glow across the midway. That's what drew urban explorers Jake and Mia. They wanted views, fame, and the thrill of breaking into a haunted park. They crawled through a gap in the fence, flashlights cutting through thick fog, their breaths visible in the freezing air. The rides loomed like skeletons, Ferris wheel frozen mid-turn, roller coaster tracks like jagged teeth. Then they saw it, the Hall of Mirrors. Its sign still glowed dimly, buzzing with broken neon. A single pumpkin sat on the steps, its surface glassy, reflecting perfectly like polished metal. Its eyes were carved not in triangles but ovals, long, empty, staring. Creepy decoration, Mia whispered, stepping over it. Jake laughed and filmed her. Come on, the internet will love this. Inside, the air was cold and still. The mirrors were cracked, but spotless, each reflecting the couple at odd angles. As they walked, the reflections began to warp, showing them older, then younger, then grinning versions that didn't move when they did. Mia noticed that in every reflection, the pumpkin was behind them, even though they'd left it outside. Jake, look, she said, her voice trembling. Their reflections began to tilt their heads in unison, though the real pair hadn't moved. In one mirror, Jake's reflection raised a hand and placed it on the glass, smiling wider and wider until the grin split its face. The lights flickered. Let's go, Mia said, turning toward the exit. But the hall seemed longer now, endless. Every reflection showed them deeper inside. Then, faintly, a voice echoed through the mirrors, childlike and distant. Stay and see your true self. The mirrors shimmered like water. The reflections stepped forward, pressing their palms against the glass. Jake's reflection reached out and grabbed him. Mia screamed as he was pulled forward into the mirror, his body vanishing in a ripple of silver. The pumpkin's reflection appeared in every panel now, glowing brighter, its grin moving as if laughing. Mia ran, but every direction led her back to the same corridor. The reflections of Jake now surrounded her, dozens of him, each smiling with hollow eyes. She turned toward one final mirror and saw herself, but different. Her reflection's face was pale, her eyes empty, and the pumpkin sat in her hands, carved with her own terrified expression. Outside, the park lights blinked out one by one. The next day, the funhouse stood silent again. Inside, police found a camera, still recording. The footage ended with a single frame, Mia staring at her reflection, the glowing pumpkin between them, and whispering, "It's me." Locals say if you walk past Silverlight on Halloween, you can see faces staring from the mirrors, begging silently to be let out. The night air of Maple Hollow carried a chill that bit through coats and skin. Fog rolled through the cracked pathways of the long-abandoned Maple Hollow Amusement Park, swirling around broken rides and toppled stalls like something alive. Halloween had always been the park's busiest night, but after the tragic fire 30 years ago, the gates had been sealed shut. Yet tonight, someone had broken in. A group of college photography students had come looking for ghost shots. They'd heard the rumors, how the carousel still turned by itself at midnight, how laughter could be heard from nowhere, and how a glowing pumpkin sat in the center each year on Halloween night. Clara, the group leader, walked ahead with her camera ready. She loved places like this, where history and horror danced together. When they reached the carousel, the moonlight broke through the mist just enough to reveal it, a decaying masterpiece. Its horses were carved from wood, their paint peeling, their eyes glassy and lifeless. The mirrors that once shimmered with joy were fogged and cracked. And at the center, just as the stories claimed, sat a pumpkin, perfectly round, unrotted, glowing from within. "Looks like someone's little joke," said Leo, her boyfriend, kicking at the damp ground. But when Clara raised her camera to snap a picture, the flash revealed something strange. For a split second, she saw the carousel mirrors alive again, children riding the horses, laughing, waving their arms. When she lowered her camera, the carousel was still. She looked at the photo. The children were still there, blurry, their faces hollow. And behind them, the pumpkin's reflection showed a carved grin that hadn't been there in real life. The group nervously circled the ride. "It's probably a trick of the light," one of them whispered. But as Leo leaned closer to the pumpkin, its light pulsed, faintly at first, then stronger, like a heartbeat. The carousel creaked, a haunting tune starting to play from rusted speakers overhead. One of the horses twitched, then another. "Clara, it's moving!" Leo shouted. The carousel began to spin, slowly at first, then faster. The pumpkin's reflection in the mirrors stretched, its grin widening to impossible lengths. The mirrors started to shimmer, and the reflections of the students began to move on their own, dancing, laughing, spinning even as their real selves stood frozen in terror. "Stop it!" Clara yelled, trying to pull Leo away. But the moment she touched him, his reflection turned toward her and smiled. Then, in an instant, he vanished. His camera clattered to the ground, lens cracked, film spilling out. One by one, the others disappeared too, their reflections waving goodbye before melting into the mirrors. Clara was the last one. The pumpkin's light grew blinding, orange flooding her eyes. She felt her feet lift off the ground, spinning, weightless. The laughter of invisible children filled her ears, and when she finally screamed, it sounded just like the carousel's music. The next morning, police found the carousel running, music echoing through the fog. Only one thing sat at the center, the glowing pumpkin, its grin slightly wider, its reflection showing 5 figures frozen in eternal motion. And every Halloween after that, when the fog returns, locals say you can still hear the camera clicking, followed by the faint laughter of those who rode the carousel of screams. For 20 years, Hollow Park Amusement Fair had been abandoned, its rides rusted, its music long dead. But every Halloween night, people said the park glowed orange from within, as if something inside was still alive. Tonight, Lara, a horror vlogger, arrived with her friends Liam, Ellie, and Chris to prove the legend real. The fog wrapped around them like fingers, as they stepped through the broken gate. "Keep rolling," Lara said to her camera. Hollow Park. Halloween night. Home of the Pumpkin King. At the center of the midway stood a giant pumpkin, nearly 7 feet tall, carved with a wide, sharp-toothed grin. Its surface was wet, like it had been carved that very moment. "Who would make this?" Liam muttered, shining his flashlight on it. "It looks fresh," Ellie whispered. Then the air shifted. The Ferris wheel creaked into motion, and the old speakers crackled with a faint carousel tune, off-key, distorted. "Okay, that's not wind," Chris said. "Something's powering this." As they turned, Lara froze. In the glass of a ticket booth, she saw a reflection, the pumpkin, glowing faintly behind them. But when she looked back, it was closer. The lights of the park flickered on, bathing everything in a sick orange glow. The laughter of children echoed faintly through the fog, but there were no children. They ran. Booths and rides twisted into new shapes, forming a maze. The pumpkin's reflection followed in every window, puddle, and funhouse mirror, its carved grin changing each time. Sometimes smiling, sometimes screaming. "Let's get inside the House of Horrors," Lara gasped. "There's a back door." They entered. Inside, every animatronic figure had a pumpkin for a head, eyes flickering orange. One by one, the pumpkins began to turn toward them. Then came the voice, low, echoing from the walls. "Carved pumpkin, welcome back to my carnival." The floor shook. The lights went out. When they came on again, Ellie was gone. Her scream still echoed through the halls. A slick trail of orange pulp led down the corridor. "Ellie," Lara whispered. The trail led to a room thick with pumpkin vines growing from the floor. Chris bent down to touch one. It shot up, wrapping around his ankle. He screamed as it dragged him under the boards. The vines pulsed once and fell still. Now only Liam and Lara remained. They ran into the mirror maze. The reflections flickered, showing the pumpkin everywhere. Its grinning face filled every mirror, closer and closer each second. "It's in here," Liam shouted. He swung a flashlight, shattering the glass, only to reveal two glowing eyes staring from behind it. Lara grabbed him. "Run!" They burst through the emergency exit and stumbled into the fog. But the park had changed again. The rides loomed higher, glowing orange from within. A deep rumble shook the ground. From the mist rose the Pumpkin King, a massive creature built of vines, rusted metal, and human bones. Its head was the same giant pumpkin from before, glowing like molten fire. "Carved pumpkin, you carved my smile," it growled, "now join my harvest." Vines shot forward, wrapping around Liam. Lara screamed as he was lifted into the air, dragged into the pumpkin's burning mouth. One crack, one flash, and he was gone. Lara ran for the gate, the camera still recording. Behind her, the Ferris wheel spun faster, the rides screaming like living things. The fog turned orange. She tripped. The camera fell, pointing at her terrified face. Behind her, the giant pumpkin loomed, its grin widening. It leaned closer, and swallowed the frame whole. The video ended. By morning, Hollow Park was silent again. No lights, no sound, no people. Only a single pumpkin stood in the midway, freshly carved, dripping orange liquid. In the puddle beside it, 4 faint faces could be seen reflected, forever smiling. "Carved pumpkin,"